Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. This is Nick Wright. Head coach Eric Mangini joining us this morning.
Now. Good to see you, Coach.
A big thank you to all of you for waking up early with us on this Veterans Day, and a special thank you to the active and former members of the U.S. military for their time and their service. Man, we had a great weekend in the NFL. An unexpected weekend.
Unexpected is
in the NFL this weekend.
Gleam in your eye.
Following a very productive Saturday in college football as well. This was a great weekend if you stayed home and watched sports all weekend.
It was a weekend.
All right, let's start with a little Sunday night football to kick things off this morning. Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys hosting the Minnesota Vikings. Two very similar teams. Dallas driving late, down 4th and 5. Dak's pass to Zeke incomplete. Quiet night for Ezekiel Elliott, just 63 yards, no scores. Vikings pressed all night, left it open for one last Cowboys try at the end. Dak's Hail Mary intercepted. So the Cowboys lose 28-24 to Minnesota. They dropped to 5-4 on the season. Here's Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott after a disappointing loss.
I've said it before, we're going to lock arms. We're going to get better. This tape has a lot for us to learn from. Sure, it's not the outcome that we wanted, but has a lot for us to learn from and to grow from, and we will, and we'll move and become better because of it.
Nick, you can't blame that guy for yesterday's loss. We wanted to see a big game from Dak Prescott against a good team, and you got that. So who is to blame for what happened to the Cowboys last night?
Let me start just quickly with what you said. Dak was sensational. I thought Dak, this was one of the 4 or 5 best football games I've seen Dak Prescott play. A national television night game, good team, your team needs it. And after a slow start, which is indicative for the Cowboys really the last 6 weeks of football, Dak was clicking, hitting multiple 3rd and 10 pluses, distributing the ball to everyone. The connection he had with Amari Cooper, toe tapping on the sideline repeatedly, including on a touchdown, was sensational, which is why I put the blame for this specific loss on whoever the hell's calling plays. Now, I don't know if it's Jason Garrett. I don't know if it's Kellen Moore. I don't know if it's hive mind combination of the two. But when you have your quarterback playing that well and the Vikings defense on their heels, you're down 4 points. You have a drive that starts on your 6-yard line. Dak is 6 of 7 throwing the football on that drive. Gets you to a 2nd and 2 at the 11-yard line. And Zeke, however great he is, he was not having a great game, and as coaches pointed out, oddly, in his career, has not been a great short yardage back. He's been great at almost everything else, not a great red zone or short yardage back, to all of a sudden go away from Dak to run Zeke on 2nd, run Zeke on 3rd, and then a pass play where they throw the ball to Ezekiel Elliott. Now, that decision might have been on Dak, but they should have never been in a 4th and 5. They were moving the ball through the air with Dak Prescott, who yesterday was the best player on the Cowboys by far. To take the ball out of his hands in that spot and what could have been a critical win for the Cowboys, Coach, to me, it's just calling the wrong plays, and it almost felt like they were worried about leaving too much time if they scored rather than first trying to make sure they scored the football, which down 4 they obviously had to do.
I think that's a little bit of an unfair assessment, and time was a factor, and they were trying to shorten the game, understanding that if they got it in, they would want to limit the amount of time that the Vikings had to come back. But when you look at those play calls, and when you look at the calls throughout the course of the game, one of the reasons that Dak had such a good game is because there was a commitment to running the ball. And oftentimes, Dallas goes away from that so early, and then teams adjust, knowing that it's going to be a pass-first game, and it's nowhere near as effective in the passing game as what we saw last night. I thought Dak played extremely well. I thought that the decision to keep giving Ezekiel Elliott chances, I don't see a big issue with that. Granted, it didn't work out, and I think this is what we always do. We look at it after the fact and say, how could you possibly give Zeke the ball? If they'd thrown 3 times, everybody would have been sitting here this morning going, how could you possibly not have given Zeke the ball in those critical situations? And even on the last play, Jason talked about the different options that they had. That 4th and 5, got to have it play, and you've got a good matchup. You've got Zeke against a linebacker. It should work. It did work. The ball just was a little bit, not late, but a little bit behind.
And it was a great play by Kendricks.
It was a great play by Kendricks. But the matchup makes sense. You've got a linebacker covering from inside out. You've got an outside breaking route, one-on-one. Look, it didn't work, but wasn't a bad decision.
And I understand your point that the commitment to the run early put Dak in some of those positive passing situations later. But what's also true, and the reason that I thought this was one of the best games I've seen Dak play, is we talk about all the time that the best quarterbacks can be successful when everyone knows you're throwing, when the whole stadium knows you got to throw. And during the comeback, because they were down 14-0 to start this football game. And by the way, the slow starts, I don't know if that's just on the coaching staff, but that's something else that I know you want to discuss, Jenna. But they 3rd and 12, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 14. Those are all conversions through the air when the whole stadium knows you're passing once they were down 14-0 as they were trying to climb back into the game. They went to Amari, they went to Gallup, they went 3 straight to Randall Cobb, who had his best game as a Cowboy. I thought Dak was dealing. And you're right, if they had thrown 3 straight times after 2nd and 2 and not gotten it, we would have criticized them. But the way Dak was playing, man, it feels almost impossible that they wouldn't have gotten it had they let him continue to throw the football.
But the problem is that they were down 14-0 before you knew it, because they're outscoring their opponents the whole game. It's in the first quarter. They're getting outscored. I think it's 55-37 or something this season. Why is that such a hard thing for them to overcome? It's been indicative of every game they've come out and played this season.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, and sometimes that happens during the course of the season where either you come out and you have a slow start at the beginning of the game, or you're a slow starting team at the start of the second half, and you try a lot of different things, and typically it's a different problem each time, and I'm sure that's something that they've been addressing, they've been trying to figure out, but they can't quite get that formula down, and I wish there was one easy answer for something like that, but there isn't. It's a combination of things that have led them to this position.
And now it's a 2-month trend. Like even the Miami game in week 3 that they ended up winning. If you remember, that was a very close game at halftime. I want to say 10-6, but it was nip and tuck at halftime. But then since then, in the first half against New Orleans, 3 points. Yep. Down 31-3 to Green Bay. Down 21-3 to the Jets before a furious comeback that stalled out with a 2-point conversion failed attempt at the end of that game. Down 12-3 to the Giants with 3 minutes left in the first half. Now they end up blowing the Giants out, so we forget about it, and down 14-0 to Minnesota. That is an enormous problem for any football team, much less a football team that has what we consider to be the best player on their offense is their running back. It's hard to stay committed to the run the way you talk about if you're down 2 scores by the second quarter each and every week, as they have been for 2 months now.
And with those problems, when you start emphasizing it so much, it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Sure.
You can spend so much time and effort trying to figure out what that problem was, and sometimes you just gotta move off from the focus of it in order to get guys to relax in that situation and just go out and play, as opposed to keep adding pressure to the start of the game.
All right, so now the Cowboys and the Eagles are both tied at 5-4 in the NFC East. Are you worried now that maybe the team we thought we were more confident would pull away from the Eagles might not even make the playoffs in the Cowboys?
Oh, well, listen, the NFC East is one playoff team division. Like, there's one chair for 2 teams. There's with the Seahawks, with all of a sudden the Vikings again, with Carolina, even though they lost yesterday. Like, there's not going to be a wild card team out of the NFC East. So, yeah, you've got to be worried about Dallas, especially when, now, Coach, we've made it 9 minutes into the show. Let me look at the schedule for a moment for you. Especially when you realize Philly, now after the bye, they have New England and Seattle. That's very difficult. But then it's Miami, the Giants, Washington, Dallas, and the Giants again. So your final 5 weeks of the season, Miami's played better of late. The Giants just lost to the Jets, which should never happen. And then you have a chance to get revenge against Dallas. Like, Philly's schedule sets up so much better for them, which is why it was important Dallas keep this cushion that they have to go along with having beaten them head-to-head.
Well, you can see how easy it is for this to happen, Jenna. Nick has a slow start. It takes him 9 minutes to get to predicting the future. And do I like the Cowboys' chances? I don't know, because I don't know which Cowboys team we're going to get. Are we going to get the Cowboys team that wins 3 in a row, or the Cowboys team that loses 3 in a row? There was a lot of great things last night, especially from Dak, that I hadn't seen on a consistent basis or throughout the course of the game like we saw last night. But there are issues with the schedule moving forward. And the advantage that Philly has is there are enough veterans on that team. And even though they've had controversy, even though they've had a significant amount of injuries, they've lost, going into this past week, 48 games from significant contributors. versus the Cowboys, which I think was 14 or somewhere along the line, nowhere near the number, and they found a way to push through that. So I give Philly an edge from a resilience standpoint and from an experience standpoint, where it feels like the Cowboys are trying to convince themselves that they belong in that spot.
And once again, we've yet to have a game where all three of the superstars, Dak, Amari, and Zeke, put together amazing games. We had it from Dak and a little bit from Amari Cooper last night, but not as much